highly controversial changes have been made at Watkins Glen in recent months, but how will it affect the racing? All 4 classes return to the grid for the first time since Sebring, and BMW have yet to score a GTP podium this year. Can they get back on track at the track where they got their first GTP win? This and more as I take you through 5 storylines to follow at this year's Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen. Some huge changes have been made to the bus stop curbing since IMSA last visited Watkins Glen last year. Earlier this year, images surfaced of the new curbing in the bus stop with not very much positive feedback. Connor DeFilippi spoke out on X saying, "This is a huge safety risk at Watkins Glen if you want broken backs or cars upside down." The winner of the opening 2 LMP2 rounds, Connor Zilic, didn't have much great to say either. He posted on X simply, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." Now, I could go on more about these changes, and actually I did in a recent episode that I'll link for you. But among the questions that this raises are, how will this affect the racing? And what turtle configuration is going to be run for this 6-hour race? Not gonna lie, turtle configuration sounded like a ridiculous thing to say in my head. You see, with the way these curbs are, they can actually be configured differently. You can make them a little bit less harsh or a little bit more punishing. So it remains to be seen exactly what the configuration of these are going to be, and it sure is going to be a fine line balancing them between being not harsh enough and just flat out dangerous. Now, a number of IMSA teams were there testing recently, and honestly, there wasn't a whole ton of negative feedback that I heard coming out of the tests, which is a good thing, but it's going to be worth monitoring as the weekend unfolds. Will this make it easier to pass going into the corner, especially if cars have to take a wider entry angle into the corner or maybe have to slow down more? Or will it make it harder and lead to fewer passes in the corner? Heck, it could have absolutely no difference. We're blowing this out of proportions and it could just be an eyesore. All of that remains to be seen, but one thing is certain. It is a change that has not been met with a whole lot of open arms. One place that I can assure you will be met by open arms is in the Off in the S's Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and get a little bit of behind the scenes look at what's going on, then you can check it out by clicking the first link in the show notes. For the first time since the 12 Hours of Sebring in March, the LMP2 class will be once again present on the IMSA grid. The reason for them being absent from the grid, you ask? Well, that's because of IMSA's calendar this year. With the LMP3 class ceasing to exist this year, many of those teams opted to join IMSA's other Pro-Am classes, which are LMP2 and GTD. With the healthy increase to both of those grids, as well as the addition of Detroit, it meant that some schedule changes were in order. As a result, Laguna Seca was removed from the LMP2 calendar, and instead they were made the headlining class for the round at CTMP, which caused a lot of moaning and groaning from fans and still continues to do so. But if I'm being honest, I think it's still going to be a great race, and actually I'm pretty excited to see the LMP2 cars headline a race. But even though those LMP2s have been absent from the grid recently, it's going to be great to see them finally back on the grid. And in fact, they're going to be back on the grid for the next 3 races in a row, with Watkins Glen, CTMP, and Road America all featuring the LMP2 class. And with them coming back, it also brings some great storylines. Can Era Motorsports stay perfect on the season? How will the Sol Ligier fare in a class that's dominated by Oricas? And in one of the tightest classes on the IMSA grid, who can emerge in that championship fight? We're in for a great race at the Glen, and I can't wait to see what this LMP2 class will bring us. Now, it's not just IMSA's LMP2 class that's back on the grid. For the third of 5 Michelin Endurance Cup races, we will feature all 4 IMSA classes back on the grid. I just talked about how the LMP2 class is of course returning, but GTD is also coming back to the grid after it was absent at the last round in Detroit. Honestly, probably for the better. Why is this an important thing for you to keep an eye on in this race though? Well, it means we're going to see a lot more traffic that cars are going to have to navigate around at the Glen. And with there certainly being no shortage of incidents up until this point in the season, that is going to be something to monitor. Now, with the wider and larger track here at Watkins Glen, it is going to make it easier for the prototypes to navigate around the slower GT traffic. But even though the track has better passing opportunities than certainly Long Beach and Detroit, but probably also Laguna Seca, we've still seen plenty of incidents here in recent years, and in fact the last 3 races at Watkins Glen have all featured 5 full course yellows. More cars on track leads to more action in the race and more storylines to follow, and I'm certainly looking forward to that. Now you may have forgotten, but last year's Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen actually finished under full course yellow for a spectacular crash by the Turner Motorsports BMW. Also in that race, BMW picked up their first, and to this point only, win in the GTP class. Of course, this came after the number 6 Porsche Penske Motorsports 963 failed tech inspection and had the win stripped away from them. But BMW are hungry to back up that win with one where they actually crossed the line first, and I think this could be the race they do it. In my opinion, they've looked a lot stronger in 2024 despite not having the results to show for it. Currently, they sit 7th and 8th in the GTP standings without even a podium to their name. I don't think that this has been reflective of their pace though. Fine, at Daytona and Laguna Seca, they didn't look great. But at Sebring, they came out and looked good in the race. At Long Beach, they had the pace for a podium, if not the pace to contend for a win. Although the lack of passing opportunities and some unfortunate incidents led to a 6th and 9th place finish there. And then they showed up and showed strong pace at Detroit as well. And I mean, pace that they looked like they could have contended for that win. But I think we can just admit that Detroit was a complete mess. So sure, they've made plenty of mistakes this year. I mean, that's why they don't have another win to their name or even a podium to their name at this point in the year. But with the strong pace that they showed in this race last year, I think it could be just what the doctor ordered to get that BMW up on the top step of the podium once again. Now, to be frank, those BMWs in the GTP class are falling out of championship contention. And right now, with them 348 and 351 points off the lead, it's going to take a miracle for them to claw their way back. But for many, Watkins Glen will represent the real start of the championship battle. It's the halfway mark of the season after all, and that means that the championships are going to be focused on that much more with each passing race. The margin for error gets smaller and smaller, and even the smallest mistakes are going to impact teams' championship chances. That was tough to say. With that though, let's look at the championship picture and how that's unfolding. In GTP, well, boy oh boy are we shaping up for a treat. After 5 rounds, the top 4, which consist of 2 Porsche Penske 963s and the 2 Cadillacs, are separated by just 91 points. This may sound like a lot, but considering that the winner of each class gets 350 points, whoever comes out of this race with the win could be vaulted right into the championship hunt. Heck, even the number 40 Acura that's in 5th place in the championship standings are only 139 points off the lead. It is tight in the GTP class. And that's why I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on this GTP championship points battle starting this weekend. In LMP2, well, it's only their 3rd race of the season, sure, but it is going to be critical to a team's championship hopes to have a good finish here at Watkins Glen. You see, currently the championship leading Era Motorsports entry has won both of the opening 2 rounds and currently holds a 127 point lead. After that though, the next 10 entries are separated by 131 points. It's an absolute dogfight in LMP2. Again, it's only 2 races in and there's still a lot to play out this season, but a good result here is definitely going to set a team up nicely for the rest of the summer. In GTD Pro, it's just been a case of who can avoid problems. The car that has done that the best so far has been Rexy, who have also won the last 2 races and hold an 84 point lead in the points. They're certainly going to be ones to watch in this race because if they put up another strong outing in this race, then we're probably going to start to see cars get eliminated from a realistic shot at the championship. However, if they slip up, then we could see a host of new players join the championship fight. And in GTD, well, it's been Windward Racing on cruise control to this point. They've won 3 of the first 4 races and look like they could take a run at the 5 wins that Paul Miller Racing put up last year. Yeah, they've looked very strong in the opening 4 races and they've been rewarded for it with a 213 point lead in the GTD championship. For me though, the intrigue lies further down in the standings. Established teams and championship teams like Vassar Sullivan and the Heart of Racing, they find themselves further down the championship standings than I think they'd expect to be at this point. It's going to take some good performances for them to dig their way out of that hole, and in fact, if anyone is going to take a run at windward and disrupting their championship hopes, it's gotta start here at Watkins Glen. Yes, the championship battles are starting to brew, and with that, it's time to start looking ahead to the 2025 season and some of the new cars that we might look forward to seeing. You can check out everything you need to know about some of those new cars coming to the IMSA grid next year right here. Huge shout out to all of the channel supporters. If you do want to support the show, then you can head to patreon.com/offtheS's or click the join button below. Once again though, thanks for tuning in. I hope everyone has a great race weekend and doesn't go off in the S's.